This vlog's about risk, and risk versus reward. About 5 years ago I separated from the family, and I realised when I separated that I needed to find somewhere to live. And buying a house, is quite an expensive thing to do and would probably require a mortgage. So what I wanted to do was to knuckle down and put myself in what we now know as lockdown and save hard for as long as I possibly could. You see, the harder I saved, the easier it would be for me in the long run. So I sacrificed living in order to live later on in life. I went on a short university course in London, studying geopolitics of global south. It was only a week. It was in Regent Street, Westminster University, really great course. But on the return from that, I went back to my 10x12 room and I put on the computer, turned YouTube on, and there was that thumbnail that stated, I sold my house and bought a narrowboat, or I left my job and bought a narrowboat, one of the two options. And that made me click. And then when I clicked and watched it, the algorithm kicked in and showed me another load of narrowboaty type YouTube videos which I watched. And then I studied through YouTube narrowboats for the whole weekend. And I did a financial plan, I did a financial strategy, and I worked out that this is absolutely something that I could do. You know, all the facts and information I stored in my, if you like, neocortex brain. It's your limbic brain that relies on feelings and emotions that makes the decision. And it felt right. Narrowboat seemed to tick all the different criteria for me to live comfortably without having a mortgage. Also, when I did my research, I worked out buying an old boat means it doesn't necessarily fit my requirements. And my requirements, as you all know, is to look after the family and welcome the family on board. So therefore I need a specific type of boat build. I researched boat builders and chose the fit out pontoon. But that was all down to a thumbnail. So did I buy a narrowboat from a thumbnail, or is it some higher authority, fairy godmother, old father fate, or Mr. G, that sent a message, a opportunity, a gift to me via a thumbnail that says, here's something that you can do, Chris. You just need to grab hold of this opportunity and do your analysis and make it happen.
Sometimes life throws at you little gifts, but whilst it may throw you a gift, it's up to you to identify what that gift is and how to exploit that gift. I mean, there's a couple that have bought a narrowboat, they didn't do a survey, they know they've done something that most people don't do, but I think life throwed them a bit of a gift in the form of fate. And that fate was the immersion tank split, created a leak, and it made them look at the bilge on the bottom of their boat, and there they found well, not quite a hole, but sufficient. Normally a base plate is 10 mil. They claim there's 8 mil of steel gone, which gives them a minuscule amount of steel left. Now imagine if they hadn't ripped up the floorboards to mop up the water and all the stuff that goes with good common sense things. They could have gone over a shopping trolley or a log, a bit of rock, a bit of whatever it is, and they could have put a bit of hole in the weak point of the hull, and that boat would have gone down in a heartbeat. And on investigation, hole in the hull, well, you know what, you should have had a survey. So I think that was a bit of a gift. Fate lending them a hand, which is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Going for a bit of a bike ride. Don't know where I'm going yet. Well, I do, but... These things are absolutely stunning, and the noise they make is just unbelievable. And on the landscape, when I see them, I've always wanted to get up close to them. Such a beautiful piece of art. Those things are fantastic. There's no two ways about it. I've always wondered where they are. And they're, I suppose, about 7-8 miles away from where I live. And they're just majestic, and everything about them I think is just fantastic. And I know that people say they block the skyline, but do you know what? I'd rather have electricity and those things than not have electricity. We need to get on board more, he says, as you're getting a diesel engine. I know. Is there going to be investment by the CRT in electric power down the 2,000 miles of canals? I don't see how it can happen without massive government infrastructure. It's difficult. We're in a transitional place at the moment globally. Imagine there's a little story of a bloke who buys a house, has a mortgage, gets a job, and then loses it for whatever reason and ends up dying. And that fella follows a light up in the sky, but knocks on the door. There's a oldish, pretty old gentleman that answers. Grey hair, long grey hair, grey shaggy beard. He answers the door and he says, yeah, I'm here. Okay, and who are you then? Well, Chris. No. Chris Mears. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Yeah. You were laughing, yeah? What are you doing here? I followed the light. Oh, did you? Followed the light in the sky and you thought you can come in, do you? Well, I don't know. I'm just here. Oh. Well, let's have a think then. Being up here is for good people. Oh, I'm a good boy, I am. You are on occasions, but not occasion enough. I don't know. You know, it's just, let me help you out. You see, we recognise you're not a bad lad. We're going to send you a message. When you got back to your little box room, you found on the YouTube a thumbnail, and we sent that to you. Did you? Yeah, that was a message. That was known as a gift, and you ignored it. Instead, you bought yourself a house. You got yourself a mortgage, and with a mortgage, you needed a job. And then, because of the Chinese Evergrande thing collapsing, turmoil within the markets, turmoil within the producing goods bit going across the West, you lost your job. And when you lost your job, you couldn't keep up the mortgage repayments. And then the mortgage company repossessed the house. Then you ended up homeless. And because of the global warming effect, lots of snow, lots of wind, lots of rain, and you caught hypothermia and died. You could have bought yourself a narrowboat. You would have struggled a little bit, I get that. But you were prepared for that. You could have scraped by. All those people from the YouTube world would have subscribed. They would have watched your viewing. You would have had a few thumbs up and a few likes, but you're not coming in. That's a bit harsh, isn't it? Well, like I said, it's for good people. Where am I supposed to go? There's a place for you at Mr. D's house. There's another thing. You won't be cold down there. No one suffered from hypothermia down there, I tell you. I've been giving this some thought, some deep thought, and I don't think there's many days that have gone by when I haven't considered, am I doing the right thing? You see, essentially I've bought a narrowboat on the back of a thumbnail. Is that a bright thing to do? And then how did that thumbnail get there? I'd never researched narrowboats. I'd never done anything to do with narrowboats. And that particular point in my life when I was at a real low point, my anxiety levels were high, and I'd just come back from London and I saw all those homeless people in London because I considered houses. And I thought to myself, how am I going to afford a mortgage? You know, I come out at 55 from the military, and then what type of house can I afford to buy? How much do I need to borrow? Geographically, where in the country do I want to live, or can I afford to live? And then what jobs are there geographically that I want to do? Beggars can't be choosers, of course. But all of that was weighing down on my mind. And then this algorithm, this thumbnail, piped up on the YouTube. I mean, it absolutely changed my life. Instead of looking for houses, I was now looking at boats. It was now to the point where, wow, I can afford to live. I don't have to think about a house anymore. I can buy a narrowboat. I can do that. It created a goal. You know, it was specific, it was measurable, achievable, realistic, and there was an implied timeline to it. Brilliant. Military people like that type of stuff. But then how did the algorithm know? So that got me thinking about the algorithm. You see, the algorithm works on facts and information that you put into it through an input of clicking on a thumbnail. That's like your neocortex brain. But I don't know about you, but there are times I need a little bit of a pick-me-up, and I watch a bit of the two Ronnies, Morecambe and Wise, Yes Minister. Abbott and Costello I've been watching just recently. Trigger from Fools and Horses. Brilliant. So there we go, that's feelings and emotions, which comes from my limbic brain. Oh, now that's a little bit clever then, isn't it? That's a little bit deep. But without me having researched anything to do with narrowboats, how was it at that time when I was feeling so low, did that thumbnail enter the screen of my computer? So, was it coincidence?
I mean, coincidence. The very nature of coincidence means it's a remarkable occurrence of events or circumstances without apparent causal connection. Well, that kind of fits the bill, doesn't it? You can't rule out anything else, though, can you? I mean, fairy godmother, or old Father Fate, or even if you're a believer, Mr. G. Whatever the outcome is, life's a risk. For example, when I got that thumbnail through on the YouTube, and I thought, this is a great idea. I'm going to crack on with doing this sort of malarkey. It's a goal. It was something that I could achieve. But then I put myself in lockdown for 4 years. Now that's a risk. Had I died in that time, that 4 years would have been a complete waste of time. But then there was something I read something I watched on the YouTube about one of those Chinese fighting guys, of the 47 Ronin. It was stated, you should never be scared of life. Because as a warrior, if you're scared of dying, then you're going to die because you're thinking about life. You've got to have a strategy that looks to the future. And of course, if you don't, then you're living for today, and that isn't really a strategy. Mintzberg, a strategist, business, strategist, says a strategy should always work because you've considered everything. And I believe that I have considered as much as I possibly can for this new journey. It's still a risk. See, what if I don't like it? What if I get up one day on the boat and think, this is crap, don't like this? There's no option B. There was, on vlog number 1, I displayed something that was on Twitter about the uptake of financial services on narrowboats has gone up by 40%. And there was one of the YouTubers from the narrowboaty type world that tweeted something along the lines of, be careful of moving onto the water and selling your property to move onto the water, because it takes some getting used to, and if you don't like it, there's no going back. You can't sell your narrowboat and hope to rejoin the housing market unless, of course, you've got lots of money, which I haven't. So I get the point, but there's a massive risk, and that's, if you like, the curveball of health that can blow all of that out the water. What happens if I get ill? What happens if later on in life that curveball of health is thrown at me? It's been thrown at a couple of my mates, and and I think you've got to live life as if it's full of excitement. When I joined up, I didn't know I was going to like the military. And when I got onto the squadrons, do you know what? I could have worked 25 hours a day, 8 days a week for free. I loved my job that much. And I wonder how many people out there love their job so they get up in the morning, woohoo, going to work. That was an amazing time. I've had an amazing career, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Yes, I've made mistakes, some big mistakes. If you look at that broad spectrum of life of my time in the military, where the camaraderie, everything about being in the military was just fantastic. Just live that experience. And if you can do that, and then life throws a curveball at you, well, at least you've given it a fair crack of the whip. At least you've had the best life you possibly could. There was a guy I did some worked with some time ago who said, you don't want on your grave, what if ... if only ... You got to live life for today. And I think that's what this project is going to give me, is that opportunity of living life to the full, living life to the best of my ability, but accepting the responsibilities that I've got. Life isn't always about money. Life isn't always about material goods. There's a difference between risk and gambling. I don't gamble. I don't like gambling. This isn't a gamble. This is just a risk. See you next week. Oh, and by the way, the boat's being picked up. I had a phone call from Mark. Yeah, the boat's being picked up this week. Fantastic. See you later.